Man, welcome back. It's your boy in the house. Welcome back to season 1, episode 5 of the one and only the PullUp podcast show. And before I get started tonight, oh my goodness, I got to welcome my hometown, Chi-Town, baby, 187 years old. And for those of you that don't know, discovered by a brother, the one and only John the Baptiste, discovered Chicago. So I want to say happy birthday, Chi-Town. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. Tonight, on the show tonight, we also are celebrating the month of March, which we're celebrating women in sports. And tonight's guest hails from my hometown, Southside Chicago. So we got a great guest. But before we bring him on tonight, Val, you know what to do. Drop.
It's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the PullUp podcast. Show. I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the PullUp podcast. Show. It's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp.
Man, it's the PullUp podcast. It's the PullUp podcast. The PullUp podcast show. Man, listen, coming from my hometown, Chicago, by the way of none other than the Loyola University, my guest tonight has had a tremendous run in athletics and academics. She's been in higher education for her entire career since coming out of college. She's in athletics, career development, and she is the Associate Director of Academic Services and Academic Enrichment and Retention. And by the way, still hasn't stopped her. She's CEO of none other than On Task Achieve. We'll talk about that. And for those who don't know, she's also a Fiskite. Let's bring on my girl tonight, the one and only Jasmine Chievous. Jas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Man, you need to have me with you with an introduction like that. I could just, man, right before you do your work, I could just introduce you.
No, thank you so much, Coach Val. I appreciate it.
How you been?
Busy, on top of all that, I like to add I am a full-time PhD student, knocking it out, grinding nonstop. So I'm just so grateful to be here. And when you reached out to me, I was like, yes, got to lead and serve. Whatever you need me to do, I'm there.
And for those of you who don't know, me and Jas go way back. And I watched her as she was in the early stages of her grind. She wasn't even on the grind yet. And it was just wonderful seeing you around the campus, in and out of the gym, doing certain things. And you know what I like more importantly than anything though, Jas? You never got bigger than who you were, meaning that you always reached out, you always kept in touch. Sometimes I had a question or two, hey, and you never said, I'm too busy, none of that. You either said, hey, I don't know the answer or give me a moment, but you always got back. So you always stayed in my heart, girl, and knowing, and Dad is my guy. So, that was good.
Yeah, definitely.
And as we get started tonight here, let's take the fans kind of back to watching the show. This is one of the up and coming sports podcasts on the show. So it's wonderful. And the PullUp podcast show has been going great. And let's go back to the early days, kind of tell everybody where you're originally from and then of course you're a Fiskite and how all that came about.
Yeah, definitely. So I hail from the great city of Columbia, Missouri. It's on the other side of St. Louis. Most people have heard of St. Louis and Kansas City, but I'm from Columbia. But when I left Columbia, I attended Fisk University, hooped for a little bit, did some cheer and dance there as well, and then had the opportunity to work alongside Anthony Owens, who is like my mentor. I was actually working for him in resident life, and then he got the athletic director's job, and he took him with me. That's kind of how I got my start. I always give him a big shout out. He's still a mentor to this day, almost 20 years later. He really let me see the behind the scenes, the logistics and everything that went into rebuilding the program and like reviving the athletic department at the time at Fisk University, which I loved. After there, I then went on to the University of Missouri, where I own my master's in counseling psychology. And I worked with mainly men's basketball, women's basketball, probably almost every sport there. in the student athlete development department. So I worked on academics and just helping student athletes really transition to life after sport. And I absolutely loved that. And so I did athletics, even administration, for about 10 years before I launched my own business, On Task Achievement, about 5 years ago.
Oh, that's all. And the funny part about that, just rewinding that tape a little bit, I always tell everybody as well, 23 years on the sideline of the college side of the house. And they always ask me, like, what was one of the toughest schools you at? And I said, believe it or not, it was Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
It was a small school. And coming from Chicago, I really didn't know a lot about HBCUs, just telling the truth, PWI guy. And, and then get an opportunity to come into Fisk and then really see the love. Of course, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, so it made it easy to get around my brothers. And then when I got a chance to see great students like yourself, and then really start to hone in on the women's basketball program, and with an opportunity to turn that program around, you had a great opportunity because things was in such, infantry at that time. So you had an opportunity to see a young program on its way of turning around and trying to grow. How did that help you being on the bottom side of the house there at Fisk and really learning from the ground up, that once you got to Missouri, then you saying, wow, I'm no longer at a small NAI school. I'm now at a D1. Things move completely different. There's money here. There are professional athletes here. And then the coaching staff is on this level. How did you maybe were able to make that transition so smooth?
Yeah, thank you. I think it helped that I had a lot of family there. That's my dad's alma mater. So I was always surrounded by love and been around Mizzou. But I think it made me really appreciate my experience at Fisk University even more, right? Because you wear a lot of different caps, right? We may not have the best resources, but we had that family environment. And what I found myself is still continually trying to make sure I'm creating that same family environment. But it allowed me certain versatility and understanding different rooms. Because Mr. Owens, at a young age, I was only 20 years old. He had me meet with ADs at all kinds of different universities, trying to figure out articulation agreements or whatever else we needed to do. He was like, come on, you could just have a seat at the table. And I really appreciate that exposure, because it just opened my eyes to one day I'm going to have me a seat at the table. Then I want to have the opportunity to pull that chair up for somebody else. And I've always tried to lead with that lens.
And that is too awesome. And then you sitting there at the likes of Vanderbilt down the street, David Lipscomb around the corner, Belmont around the corner, of course, obviously Tennessee State right down the street. When you're sitting in those meeting rooms at 20 years old, trying to say, wow, I'm actually here. I haven't made it, but I'm actually here. Was that the opening door for you at that particular time? Say, this is what I really wanted to do.
Absolutely. He had me around women ADs. It was Miss Teresa at the time at Tennessee State
Exactly
University.
Right.
And it was Miss Jennifer. She's actually an alum at Fisk University. She oversaw compliance, and just being able to work with them and shadow them. I was like, what? I can do this too. And it was just a beautiful thing how they kind of took me underneath their wing. And even still to this day, I can still reach out to them. I had presented at a conference with Miss Jennifer maybe like 6 years ago down in New Orleans, where we were trying to talk about funding for lower resource institutions, specifically HBCUs, but having that partnership, before I got that job, it was good just to be able to reach out to her and be like, hey, y'all doing some great things at Tennessee State University. Can we use this blueprint, right, for the university I was at the time?
Oh, yeah. And then the school is doing great. And Jennifer Bell, that's my girl, and Coach Phillips, they brought me into the fold. I was an outsider coming into Fisk, but then they saw the things that I was trying to do. Obviously, you were there as I was getting an opportunity to turn the women's basketball program around. And it made me just really love it, because I came in with Coach Moore on the men's side of the house. And then to move over to the women, it was absolutely, totally different. Like, whoa, wait a minute. And then to see those girls come in, and it wasn't easy because, again, you're talking about Fisk at the time, they were making some changes. The school was, obviously get a lot of their students from a lot of the alumni who graduated from Chicago and Detroit and LA, DC. And it was just great. And it was really eye-opening for me, because I'm like, wow, this is totally different than I ever expected. And then all of a sudden you get thrust into what an HBCU life is all about. And then having Tennessee State right down the street was absolutely awesome. So now you find yourself graduated, you get back home down to Missouri, and now you're like, I'm no longer learning. This is now the real world. Take us through that experience.
Yeah, so my experience, I started out as like an intern, then a graduate assistant. Dr. Joe Scoggin, who's actually at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville now, still a mentor. He gave me my first opportunity at Mizzou and took me underneath his wing, showed me and explained to me about NCAA compliance, just different academic legislation that I didn't know anything about. And then when I was about halfway through my master's, he was like, you know what, I think you're ready to do full-time. So he ended up giving me a full-time caseload, which was bananas, but I was excited. But the full-time staff member I was working with at the time was on maternity leave.
Oh,
Right.
so you got everything.
Yeah, but I believe in like purpose and position, and God doesn't make any mistakes. So I felt like if God thought I was ready, I was ready. I mean, we did some amazing things at that university at that time. And I would like to share that I was actually the first African American woman as a part of their graduate assistant program. And
Oh,
so
wow.
since then, I've kind of opened the doors for more women of color, even men of color, right, to have those positions because nobody was in that area in academics and student athlete development, specifically at Mizzou prior to my arrival. And so I'm so excited that they keep opening the doors and giving opportunities because it's an amazing opportunity. You learn so much, and the model really is developing young professionals to walk out into a full-time position, which I did right after graduation.
Oh, that's awesome. So in that position, it already existed. It's just that you got an opportunity to step into that role, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, that is absolutely. And then with the caseloads and stuff, because you were down there during the time that my guy Conzo was there, right?
No, he came after me.
And right after, okay. Well, you know, he was my first guest on the show.
Yeah, I retweeted it. I love Coach Martin. Yeah,
My
he's
boy,
great.
oh my God, that's like, my mentor and everything else has been absolutely great. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. Again, just being surrounded by a lot of good stuff. And, the great part that I like what you just said is, sometimes, we'll get put in positions that we think the workload is too much for us until we say we're ready. And you obviously were ready because hanging out with the likes of Teresa Phillips, for those of you who don't know, she was a Fiskite. Came from Vanderbilt University, but coached at Fisk, then went on to Tennessee State, became the first AD in the U.S. to coach a men's basketball team. So you talking about pressure, that was pressure within herself and then her staff. Now they've gotten you trained to the point where you step into a D1 opportunity down at Missouri and then just boom. Now, once you got through that task and the AD saw that you can handle it, how fast were you moving at that point? Were things still kind of stagnated, or were you like on the fast track?
I think I was on a fast track because Dr. Scoggin, who I mentioned before, he was like, I think you need to start reaching out to universities and just let them know when you graduate. And I think you're ready to move on from here and learn somewhere else. So I actually got recruited from Troy University down in Troy, Alabama. Mind you, I'd never been to Alabama. I was like, what is going on? But, I got recruited by Coach Larry Blakeney. So if anybody knows football and things like that. So I went down there to actually build what was then called life skills, now in student athlete development, to build their program, working with women's basketball and a few other sports. So that was an amazing opportunity. That was my first like real salary, y'all. And so I was super excited to get down there. And Troy is just full of good people. They took really good
Troy
care
is
of
like
me.
deep down in the cut. My folks at North Alabama, and Troy used to be in the same conference with University of North Alabama until they stepped out and won D1. So now you're leaving Missouri, you're in Troy. That's give or take a little bit because you're coming out the Midwest to the South. How was the transition?
It was very different. Some cultural things, that I had to learn, very old school. But I think a lot of the experiences that I learned at Fisk, when I promise you, there's not any environment that I can't handle just from getting through Fisk. And so I really loved it. But I had that Southern hospitality feel. But again, I was the first African-American woman in that position. So navigating those politics as well. But I loved it. I loved Troy University.
We got people checking in. April, my girl, what's going on? Mark is out here tonight. So you guys make sure that you ask my girl, Jasmine Chievous, some questions that we got on tonight. You guys are here on the show tonight, season 1, episode 5, with your guy, the hostess of the most, is Coach Tony on the PullUp Podcast Show. Make sure you like the show. Make sure you share it. More importantly, subscribe to the show. Before we come back, we're going to pay some bills real quick, Jazz. We're going to kick this to Valerie real quick. Let her pay some bills. End of the first quarter. We'll be back with my guest, none other than Jasmine Chievous. We'll be right back.
Are you a small business owner looking to grow? Introducing the KeySpot mobile app. I'm Cynthia McAllister, owner of the IT company Quality SAT. Since 2016, we have been supporting small businesses and help them promote and share their businesses, services, and events across the country. KeySpot is more than just an app. We are a network providing community. KeySpot, connecting communities and supporting small businesses.
Man, welcome back to the PullUp Podcast Show. It's your guy, the one and only Coach Tony, sitting here tonight with a fist kite, my girl, Jasmine Chievous. So, Jas, we're talking about the choice situation. So now I want to kind of dig in your brain. So over the last few weeks, we've really been talking on the show about the sports piece of the athlete to NILs to what's going on and the changes. So you've been there pre, right, NIL. You've been there pre-changes in the NCAA. We always talk about the athlete. What we never talk about and discuss is the academic side of the house. Because what a lot of our kids don't know, and I'm constantly preaching when I'm at camps, when I do workouts, when I go out and do reviews and I talk to parents and things, is that if the athlete cannot get the grades, this is not high school. So you have what they call semester review. If you are a football player, it's usually the previous year. And if you don't have the academics, you're not going to play because football comes up usually right before school starts or right at the time school starts. If it's basketball, you have a semester to get your act together. And if not, by Christmas, you're going to sit down doing the conference play. Mm-hmm. So how do you explain at that time, you're now on that side of the house, and as you're learning, what was the difference, or what were the conversations like with some of those athletes, making sure those kids were able to stay eligible?
Yeah, I think it started with recruiting. I think I feel truly blessed in the 10 years I was on that side of the house. I had coaches that bought in, right, to the holistic approach with the student athletes. Whether if that's reviewing transcripts and just making sure, okay, coach, I know they're a baller, but realistically, look at where they're at academically. I haven't had a coach yet that kind of fought with me on that, but I think they understood specifically what those initial eligibility rules are. And specifically on task achievement, that's what I do. I have a lot of clients in Alabama. So I'm going in homes and I'm catching them as early as 8th grade. Like, hey, let's map this out. Working with guidance counselors and really educating them. Okay, these are the required courses that you need. These are the GPAs that you need. And then by the time they get to us on campus, they're already in pretty good shape because we're already developing that mental mindset, right? That, hey, you are a student and then an athlete. Right. But I think it's very important to make sure that parents, families, and everyone's aware of these are the eligibility rules. A lot of families that I found, they had no idea you had to have this combination of courses. You had to have this specific GPA. And once you explain it to them, I feel like they buy in, and everybody wants to win a championship, right?
Sure, exactly.
Yeah. It starts in the classroom first.
Starts in that classroom, right? And before you get that ring, you better get them books. You know,
exactly.
And trust me, and we've all walked those halls and stuff like that. And I think you said something very important, and that's the thing I think we need to continue to convey, is that getting into the homes and getting into those parents early. Obviously, what kind of kills me is that now when you look at the high school status and stuff, Jazz, you start to see a lot of times, a lot of the parents, they say, okay, we're going to rely on the academic advisor, depending on the schools. Obviously, I'm a product of the Chicago public school system. So we didn't have no freaking sports advisor. We had a homeroom teacher and a quasi advisor. And obviously now the things have changed because you have now more parochial private schools, more charter schools, and more Catholic schools than you saw in the normal in the past. So when you see some of these kids, when you look at the average between our children and the majority, what do you see some of the hiccups or the mistakes that we make early on with our own kids that we struggle trying to get them over the hump?
I don't think that we're introducing English and math early enough. I think it's a stigma specifically in the Black and brown communities that we're not good enough, or it's like we develop what's called imposter syndrome, right? But I think the earlier we can introduce those tougher subjects to students, that way they build those skills. It's just like basketball, right? The sooner you practice and teach those foundational skills, you build them. Repetition is the key to learning. So I think the earlier we introduce those concepts, but what I love about Chicago is the amount of resources that we have here. People just haven't tapped into them yet.
Right, right, right. And you see that, and I was going to make a statement is that just here in Nashville alone, a few weeks ago, they just tried to redo the guidelines, and now they're talking about holding back kids as early as fourth grade. So if you can't pass those, what you just said, they're only judging on the math and the English part of the achievement test. And it's the way that if you can't pass those achievement tests now, it's been thrown around. The issue and the problem is in the Black and brown community that the tests are a little skewed, but you know how that goes. And again, sometimes instead of us saying, something, even though this information is skewed, I'm gonna do my part, we start the blame game. So when you at that level with the athlete, because you saw plenty of kids that came in the door that was that athletically sound, could be a professional, but academically they struggle. What were once you get to that level, kind of explain to the kids and the parents and the coaches and people that are listening tonight that once you get to that college level, because of what a lot of people don't understand is the sport you play at a D1, it's a class. I don't care what you say. Yeah. You got film, you got study, you got practice. It is a class. So it's that extra silent class that you don't hear. So how are you able to make sure those kids balance, one, going to class, right? Two, studying with their support staff. Three, getting the homework turned in. Oh, by the way, you got to do homework on an airplane. You got to do homework on a bus. And you got to do homework in the hotels when you're traveling on the road. So how are you conversating with those athletes that were coming in talking to you?
Yeah, I really stopped talking about men's basketball because I worked with them the longest, and statistically speaking, they had the lower academic GPAs and graduation success rates and things like that. So I'll start there. I think one of the things that I try to do is I didn't call them athletes. I would be like, hello, scholar, right? And I tried to really help encourage them so they could see something outside of their sport, like exposure, internship, job shadowing, just letting them know how all the pieces fit together, right? If you could run this fast, jump this high, and things like that, how do we really transform that talent inside the classroom? And what I always try to do is make sure that they knew what resources were available to them and let them know you had this great web of support. But I think a lot of things is students don't know what support they have until we expose them to them, right? Or they could see someone that actually walked their same steps succeeding, right? I know I had my dad talk to a lot of my former students, just like, hey, dad, give some advice and some insight and some things like that to put it all together. So that's what I tried to be. And I was always consistent, always fair. But I always told my players also, I love y'all. I love y'all to this day. They still reach out. Hey, Miss Jazz, what's going on? I love you. I'm so glad you graduated. I'm really glad I listened to you, and things like that.
Yeah, that is, you could have hit a nail on the coffin because I have parents that still tell me, I still talk to Rashida and I still talk to everybody, and they tell me they reach out to me, Jazz, and some of those guys don't even remember their high school coaches. And that just because they said I always stay grounded. I'm always going to be me. And it's wonderful what you just said, bringing dad in, because sometimes I would do that as well. Let's bring somebody in that walked these halls. Let's bring somebody else in that ran these fields. Let's bring somebody in that ran this basketball court or that track and field so that you can see what they do, because one day that sport that you're in is going to stop. The ball's going to stop bouncing. The football is going to stop getting tackled. The track's going to stop running. And now you got to see if you got it all here and were you prepared to go on to the next level and make that happen. So that's tremendous. From that, I'm looking to see, are you seeing from your work that you're doing that you have more struggling male or more struggling female athletes that come talk to you?
I think in my experience, it was more male, and it could have been kind of how they were targeted, right? If you look at the data, the graduation rates might have been lower with men's football versus a sport like women's basketball, depending on what institution you were at. But I would say I had more interactions with males, but a lot of them also were looking for that love, that mother, that sisterly type of bonds that maybe they weren't getting at home. And I was great to be able to serve into those type of positions for a lot of them. Like even to this day, when they have kids, they send me, invitations to baby showers. I send gifts, weddings, all kinds of type of stuff. But I think that just comes from the rapport we build, right? And I know, Coach, you can relate to that as well.
Yeah, you gotta have that report. And then how much of that do you pay from that jab from dad? Because I know dad was on you, you know what I mean? You get an athlete, so you got that sports in your blood. Because trust me, I tell my daughter, like, I want no parts of it. So I know that. So how much of that, just in the growing up part of the house, because you got brothers and sisters as well, that dad would just say, hey, this is the baby girl. This is how it need to be done. To the point you just start to catch on to it.
Yeah, I think my dad always taught and stressed discipline. But one thing I've always admired about my dad, and even almost 40 years old, I'm still admired about him, is he always led through example, right? I don't think there was any expectation that he expected from any of us that he didn't first exhibit, right? But he always said, that's the Chievous way. That's not the Chievous way, and things like that. So his expectations were always high. And one of the things my dad says to all of us, y'all was already born stars. It's up to y'all to shine. And that's just something that always resonates with me. But he ran a tight ship, and I appreciate it for the discipline that I have today because of him.
Oh, yeah. I should tell my daughter the same thing. I tell my granddaughter right now, same thing. Baby, you're already a star. It just depends on, you got to look around. Stars in the sky, right? So you've already made that part. Now you just got to shine. So it's great. We are sitting and having a wonderful conversation with my girl, Jasmine Chievous, from the Loyola University, north side of Chicago, even though we true south siders here. So there you go. Jazz, it's so funny because we're just talking about Chicago, 187 years young today. Oh, man, I didn't even realize that until earlier. And you get an opportunity to celebrate. Were there any celebrations going around the city today at all?
Not yet. Navy Pier looked like it was lighting up, but they're probably waiting for the weekend. The weather's been nice. It was almost 70-something degrees today. So
hey, trust me. You're going to call me in the next 2 weeks. Say, man, Coach Tony, you told me. It is now the 4th. Give it exactly 10 more days. And on St. Patty's Day, they're going to paint the entire harbor green.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Once you get down on Lower Wacker and on Michigan Avenue, that entire thing is going to be St. Patty's heaven. They have the St. Patrick's Day parade coming down Michigan Avenue. You get an opportunity to experience a lot of stuff that goes on in the city that normally won't happen in other places, other cities. They celebrate that big.
I can't wait. I'm ready for it.
So that's going to be awesome. The other thing is you then had an opportunity to take the career from there. And then how did you get over to William Woods? What was that like?
Well, there's a piece missing that. Before I went to William Woods, I went to serve at a lower resource institution called Northwestern State University.
Northwestern State, yes.
Yeah, and I work with Coach Mike McConaughey. I know you know him, the most winningest coach in Louisiana history. Yeah. I mean, that was an incredible experience to work with him and his staff. And one thing I admired about him was that every young man that went through his program graduated.
Oh, that is awesome.
You can't say that a lot about a Division I program, but he didn't care how long it took, right? He would use his resources, fundraising, whatever he could do to make sure those guys graduated. So I admire him greatly. So I didn't want to leave that note out.
Yeah, that is all. And the thing is, from looking at that, because obviously then you're putting that tidbit of note in the back of your head because we're still at this point, we're building up on Chi, right? So as we're building up and putting all these nuggets in there, what was Coach doing? Because I've seen some different ways. I know I've got my ways, and I had with my athletes. I told them, we had mandatory study hours. We had to make sure we check in. We had to make sure that we had go see our tutor. If your GPA wasn't to such and such level based on the academics of the university, it was one thing, but then mine were a few points higher because I knew that if those kids only got what the university want, somebody's going to slip. But if they got what I want and they slip, they still will be in okay with what the academics of the university wanted. What did you see that Coach had in place that the kids bought in and it made it so successful?
I would say prayer. He always started every practice with the prayer. He allowed me to be a part of that. He allowed me to be at the pregame prayer in the locker room, after game celebrations, and never in my career had I had a head coach be so hands-on to study hall. He would pop up and be at study hall. Yes. He created mentorship programs for the guys with alumni. Like, they still get together to this day, and he's retired from NSU now. But he really always weaved in that faith. They did Sunday church services together, Bible study together. And I mean, like weaving in God. I mean, how can you lose, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing that I saw him doing. They were so much like a family from Sunday dinners. I mean, it just was remarkable. And I was so glad that he really let me be a part of that process. It was probably one of the best experiences that I had with men's basketball.
And it was it wasn't a major university like a Missouri. You know, you're talking about a mid-major program.
Mm-hmm.
So
mid-major
that is
program, awesome. Southland Conference. So I got to learn a little bit about the FCS and all that stuff for the football side. I mean, it was beautiful. But when I tell you there would be a packed house every game,
I'm telling you.
Every single game. And he also had a JV team. People would even show up for the JV games.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know the kids are loving that. They're like, I'm out here playing JV. I'm trying to get the varsity right now, but I got a packed house because most of the time the crowd won't get there to almost right at tip off. And now they sit in the house watching me. Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And another thing I love that he did with recruiting, usually you send a recruiting coach. No, Coach Mike would go actually to the house and visit the families himself. Right. And I had not seen that before. So he would be all over Louisiana and all kinds of different stuff. But he loved them like, you know, they were his sons. I mean, years and years of guys would always come back. And it was just so beautiful to see.
Oh, yeah, I love that. You know, I remember when you guys were building, doing your thing, playing ball, coming to Fist. And they always asked me, man, how are you getting these kids to come to Fist? And I said, well, you know, I got the formula where I found out what the tuition was. And I found out what the academic opportunity was based on GPA. So then I told myself in my mind, I'm not going to recruit a young lady that was below this GPA because I know at this GPA, I'm going to have X amount of dollars. And then I could apply the rest to a scholarship. And then that's how we turned the program around. And that was a formula that I used. And you're right. I went out, Jazz. I remember calling parents. I remember going out with Miss Teresa in California, doing the HBCU show out there. And I was amazed at how many kids that only knew about the Wiley colleges and things of that nature. But when you said Fist, they're like, oh yeah, my dad or my granddad or my auntie went there. Their legacy such and such. So we started to really build up. So that's got to be awesome, especially he has the team still communicating and coming back. That's the key.
Yeah, it was beautiful to see. So shout out to Coach McConaughey. Love you,
dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome. We've got my girl Jasmine Chievous on air with us tonight on the show, the PullUp Podcast Show. What you got, Coach Tony? We've reached halftime right now. Val's going to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
Super Bowl. Do you think that Usher was the best, or was it Beyonce, or was it Kira and J-Lo? Who had the best performance?
Oh gosh. So I never say who's the best or who's the worst. I think in each of their own ways, everyone is. To get to play the Super Bowl as an artist in itself is fantastic. I think Usher went through his discography perfectly. Having her come on stage and play the guitar is such a special thing. I think when artists get to invite other artists on stage, it's such a great moment to like share the love and share it. And so every artist, like Coldplay bringing Beyonce and Bruno Mars, he didn't have to. Shakira and J-Lo, right? I think it's really important instead of like, who's the best, getting to realize you could do this moment by yourself and it would still be iconically as good. Usher could have been just himself, like Rihanna did just herself. Right. But he chose, especially to bring female artists on the stage. It's just beautiful, beautiful.
Man, you know, by the way, Jad, Val keep me busy. You know, we got a Tuesday night show too. I'm like, man. Oh. So we are back here with my girl, Jasmine Chievous. So now let's kick it up a notch. So now you come back, you in my hometown, besides having to learn how to deal with the weather. Because if you learn how to deal with the weather in the shower, baby, you can do anything, right? I tell them all the time. So now you're at the Loyola up on the lake and all that. How was that transition?
I mean, it's been beautiful. Shout out to the lake coast. So when I tell you my office actually overviews the lake, like when I saw that, I was like, sold. I love water. But
seeing that beautiful water come in, man.
Yeah, so it's been phenomenal. So this is my first time working at a Jesuit type institution. So I've been charged with the task of overseeing like low income, Pell eligible, underserved, and first generation college students. So we
Oh,
have
wow.
about close to over 300 students that I oversee in 5 different programs. What I think is beautiful about the programs that these students have earned scholarships to come to Loyola, as we know, could be pretty pricey, right? It's a private
Yeah.
institution, but these students earned it, right? And so what I'm there is just developing programming and figuring out retention initiatives to make sure that everybody graduates. And it's been quite the experience. And I've met so many different students from all different backgrounds. And I'm loving it. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's so now you're out and about and throughout the city of Chicago, north side, south side, west side of the city, talking to the high school students and all that. How are they receiving you as you set these events up, going out to talk to them?
It's been beautiful. I think what's so great is that we have a great admissions office. So they already kind of, welcomed me with open arms and been helping facilitate that process. Specifically, Hope Chicago, which is one of my biggest programs that I oversee, which is a newer program. We've only been there a year with Loyola. And so I'm the campus representative and partner for that, which is a nonprofit organization really trying to help students on the South and Southwest side, right, get an opportunity to go to a university or get some type of credentials. It's a 2-generational model, and it's completely free. I think it's beautiful. They identify 5 particular Chicago public schools, high schools, and are really trying to really help with like what we're calling like the mass exodus, right? Of
Mhm.
people leaving Chicago, specifically Black and brown people. So
Yep.
we want to retain them in the city, and we want to make sure that they have employment within the city.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because I know I'm back and forth. And of course, I'll be getting with you because I'll be coming up with my AAU team. So me and you will be seeing each other pretty soon. And I hope it's a weekend of dads in town. We all can do dinner and all that. And, to see that, I talk to my friends. Me and Val talk pretty much every day, every few days. And to see the exodus, like you said, of people, it's like DePage County or out Naperville, Oak Brook. It's like the new Chicago, so to speak, because the people that were in the city are now flocking to the western suburbs. So to see you do that and to really go out and work, is there any of the particular high schools you want to throw a shout out to that's really been doing a great job of the kids coming to know? Because people, the ones who don't know Chicago, she's the bumper between the north side and northwestern. So if they get by Jazz, they're going to Evanston.
That's so funny. And I think my students will be mad if I gave a shout out to one particular high school. So I will say high five to my starting 5 high schools that I work with. I don't want to shout them out, just one person, but they're doing a phenomenal job. But you know what, Coach? It goes back to my other point that I was talking about with imposter syndrome, right? So we're getting these individuals from the South and Southwest side. As you know, the North side is a little bit different, right?
Correct.
So is the culture different. And all
Yep.
of my students have identified as color. So students of color, so they're coming to a predominantly white, right, institution, a predominantly white neighborhood. And also you have to think about Jesuit values. Some of
Right.
the students are still learning those type of things. So I love being able to create a team and help facilitate their process where they feel seen, where they have a great sense of belonging. And again, that family love that I always try to create in each department.
Oh, that we got one of your fellow lovers said, Jasmine, thank you for all that you are doing. We are absolutely loving what you're doing. Keep up the good work. So you got some people out there, Jazz, already loving what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And for those that, I'm gonna go back 2 steps from what she was describing, so you guys can get a big picture of Chicago. So of course, as we grew up, we didn't really count the North Side, but anyway. So if you wasn't South Side, West Side, we really ain't talk about you. But the funny part about it is, as you make it up and you're looking at the demographics of the city of Chicago, South and Southwest side of Chicago going to be named predominantly a little bit of everybody, from Irish to Polish, African American, Caucasian, Latino descent, Italian descent, everything. West side is going to be mainly a lot of African Americans. North side is a little bit of everything because you got downtown to the north side of the city. So you are now sitting up at Loyola. And are these kids that you're working with, what's the disparity between normal students coming in and athletes that you are in other words, do you have several athletes that are part of this program as well?
Yeah, so I have a mixture of bunch. I think that's why I love it. So it's all general population, but if some of the student athletes receive the scholarships that I oversee, then they're also a part of those programs. So not only are they navigating their athletic responsibilities, being a part of the scholarship programs, they have specific benchmarks, right, that they have to make as well. So I would say maybe like 10% of the scholarship programs are also student athletes as well, but we're all housed in the same department.
Oh, that's all. And you know, you just barely missed it, girl, because Sister Jean, she was on them ball players last couple of years in the NCAA tournament. So
Yeah.
for promotional purposes only, they was rocking and rolling. I'm like, ooh. So now they're getting ready to obviously, you know, they've jumped up in the mat they're in the valley now, as a matter of fact. And so now conference tournaments getting ready to start this week. So how deep do you got them Ramblers going?
I think they were good. I spoke to one of the coaches. I think he was like, "Oh, we're number 2. We're going to do this and that." He's like, "You come to the game." I had to study. Sorry, coach. But I think they're getting things turned around. What I appreciate is the culture, right? Everyone loves the basketball team, and like just seeing them rally around it. And it's such a small campus. You would think
Yes,
it's huge, but it's not as big. I think people think.
exactly.
So
Exactly. Once you get up on Sheridan, at the end of the line, you make that curve. The campus is right there on top of you. So
yeah. And it's
so
always changing, always evolving. Like I always tell students when you're visiting the campus, if you see a lot of construction, that's a good sign.
oh, because that new gymnasium is absolutely beautiful. Oh my God, I absolutely love it. And I can imagine, you know, you're sitting there overlooking Lake Michigan, and you don't get the opportunity, which is good because you came in this year. You don't get the opportunity to see the absolute frozen tundra, as we used to call it, where Lake Michigan was so cold it froze over. So you would go nuts when you see that picture because the ice is on the lake about 5 or 6 feet thick, and you can see the wind blowing and just the frost coming off the lake. It's a beautiful picture, but when you step outside, it's gonna cut right through you, girl.
Coach, don't scare me now. I'm trying to fall in love with Chicago, not run away. And what you just described, it just scares me.
Hey, we got to get you indoctrinated into the city, girl. And by the way, I'm so glad you're home because when I need my hoagies and my pizzas, I'm hollering at you. I need an overnight shipment. Boom, Lou Malinati's, Giordano's. I'm about to get that.
Just let me know. You know, I'm obsessed with Harold's and the mild sauce. I find myself, I put mild sauce and hot sauce on everything now.
There you go. Hey, we went up there with my daughter and her boyfriend. And first thing said, we got to go to Harold's. I got you. We're going to do that. So, you know, it's so funny. We're celebrating the month of women in sports, too. And I'm telling you, me and my buddies go back and forth. What do you think was happening right now with my girl, Caitlin Clark, out at Iowa? Just shattered none other than Pete Maravich's record yesterday, playing against Ohio State University. What do you think about this young lady?
I think she's phenomenal. I think it's almost close to 3,700 points, right? The record that she broke. I'm excited. She'll go number 1 to the Indiana Fever.
Yes, she looks like she's going, and it's going to be a good move because they just coming out with my girl that just came out of South Carolina last year. So to put her there, and that puts her in the same division with the Sky, so you get a chance to see her.
Yeah, so I'm excited just to go out and support it. You know, another woman in sport doing great things. What I love about her when you interview is the humility, right? That she speaks with and all those type of things. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to see what she does next in this tournament.
Oh, yeah. I'm waiting to see. I got her, already had her doing her thing already, pulling up, acting like Steph Curry in the college, pulling up from the logo. I'm like, man, and then my boy, he was talking to me yesterday, telling us, man, I would shut her down. I said, man, come on, man. She got too much range for you to shut her down. You know, even in your good days.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. And now, I don't know if you heard of this young lady here. Are you familiar with Layla Edwards from the University of Wisconsin, who just became the first Black woman hockey player to come out of the Big Ten and to go professional hockey?
No, school me. You know that other than studying the aggression in hockey, I have not really kept up with it. I would love to look her up and cheer her on as well.
Please cheer this young lady on. Layla Edwards. And she is phenomenal hockey player from the University of Wisconsin and have the opportunity to go on and be the Big Ten Hockey Player of the Year, to then go on to be chosen to be a professional as a woman hockey player, and will participate with Team USA. So that's absolutely phenomenal. And I think if she makes Team USA, Jazz, she will also become the first African-American hockey skater for Team USA in the history.
I love to hear that. I mean, and what real model, right? Young little girls of color can look up to and all that good stuff. I love that. Maybe my daughter will play hockey.
Yeah. And speaking of color, my girl, which I'm about to sing you the show. I got a 14-year-old girl. Send a shout out to Michaela Chinyuri of Denver, Colorado. 14 years old, Jazz, tennis player, was just put into the Hall of Fame of the state of Colorado at 14.
Oh
Yeah,
my
and
goodness.
obviously doing some good things, which her favorite tennis player is none other than Coco Gauff. That is my girl. And she's been doing some phenomenal things. Slipped a little bit this year, but she came back. So these three women right now have really kind of turned what we're looking at in women in sports, and it has been absolutely phenomenal. And I'm hoping that, from what Caitlin has done, they said that you have got the young girls flocking to basketball now like none other. They were playing a little soccer, but basketball was already growing, and now you're about to see that just take off. And I'm sure what you said with Layla Edwards in hockey, you probably now about to see the transition of several young African-American females try that sport as well.
It's so exciting. It's high time, right? I think when we have the opportunity to actually see ourselves, right, doing things that were not commonly done before or as frequent, right? I think that's going to continue to open doors.
Exactly right. Hey, as we open these doors, we are coming up to the fourth quarter, ending the third quarter here on the PullUp Podcast Show. We're going to let Val pay our last bill of the day, and we'll be right back with my guest, Jasmine Chievous.
Are you a small business owner looking to grow? Introducing the Key Spot mobile app. I'm Cynthia McAllister, owner of the IT company Quality SAT. Since 2016, we have been supporting small businesses and help them promote and share their businesses, services, and events across the country. Key Spot is more than just an app. We are a network providing community. Key Spot, connecting communities and supporting small businesses.
Welcome back to Val Cartman. Welcome back to the PullUp Podcast Show with my girl, none other than Jasmine Chievous. Now, Jasmine, this is the fourth quarter, so everything except for the NBA All-Star game, they take it serious.
Hilarious, Coach.
This, and we're going to focus now on exactly your business, On Task Achieve. Take us through that process, because what the people don't understand, the thing that this young lady is doing since she hit the city of Chicago, she's not stagnant, she's not sitting still, and she's not waiting around. She's put it out there. And we want to talk about On Task and give you some credit. And we also want to make sure, Jazz, that you tell us how to reach out and take a look. So we'll get that link and get Val to put it in the link. But you just did some incredible things with Hope Chicago. And for those that don't know, Hope Chicago is a nonprofit organization sitting in the city of Chicago that reaches out and helps out with a lot of our public high school kids, which is what Jazz talked about. Take us down that road a little bit, Jazz, and talk about the benefit and the opportunity you had to work with Hope Chicago recently.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll back up and talk about like the mission of On Task Achievement so everyone out there understands. So it's a 3-part fold company. So we help individuals and their families achieve their goals through career development, college preparation, or what we call student athlete eligibility education. So essentially, I'm going into homes, schools, seminars, and explaining to them what your student needs to do to get recruited. And obviously, everybody wants to play at the Division I level, right? So just making sure that they understand that. Now, previously, I just had the opportunity to speak at the Young Professionals event. Oh, that picture's so funny. Thanks, y'all.
And you got to go, no, you letting them know right there you working the crowd.
Yeah, so it was an opportunity just to kind of talk about how we provide the wraparound and holistic support and what that looks like for students, and really meeting students where they're at and really helping giving them the tools and resources to be successful in college. It was an amazing event. The entire panel was women of color. So I was just grateful to God to even be in the number and be in the presence of everybody and everything that they're doing. Dr. Jackson is actually the CEO of the company, and she's doing some amazing things. She spent like 20 years in Chicago public school system. So I really look up to her and her entire team for what they're doing. And it's been great to just introduce me to different people and places, right, in the city, because you got to network to increase your net worth, right?
Sure.
And so it was amazing to be a part of that. And everybody in the room really has that servant heart, right, and really wants to make a difference in the life of the Chicago community.
And so we got a question on the floor that says, Jazz, with the program, with on task, do you just strictly currently work with the people that are within the Chicago community, or is your company also working extended outside of Illinois, outside Chicago?
Yeah, we're nationwide, baby. I have clients in Tokyo. I'm working on a project in Cameroon. I have several clients in New York. Like, we're all over the place. I would say right now we're somewhere around 38 states nationwide. So I'll definitely share my contact information and feel free to reach out. Right now, our prices are about 75% lower than the market price. And I created the business to really help people of color really access those resources that they weren't readily available in particular communities. So I'm always happy to help, but I will let you know whether or not if we're a good fit. If you're not a good fit, I don't mind referring you to someone else. This is God's work and God's plan. So if it's not,
hey, you know how that go. And my boy Justice Allen says, shout out to the impact that you're making in the community. We need more people like you, and I totally agree. And what I'm liking about that, Jazz, is that obviously we're in an election year. Obviously we know that. And we always talk about the young kids push to vote, right, to make a difference and to make a change. And the two things that I'm gathering from On Task, from basically what you're talking about, is, the big thing that we had a problem with when we were there, and I went to Morgan Park, by the way, so I'm definitely going to shout out the Mustangs on the South Side. But we constantly, year in and year out, Jazz, had teacher strikes, right? Every year, that was a teacher strike. Every year. And it got to the point that it was so bad, then, like Val said, they either bagged up our Christmas break or they took our spring breaks away. That's how long they were on strike sometime. So to see you with a program like this, because when these kids are on strike, right, or COVID, or working or learning remote, they can give a hoot about, getting back on the campus. So with the On Task, what are some key elements or some key things that when you talk to the young person's parents that you try to throw out there so they can understand exactly what you guys are trying to do?
Definitely. I think what we try to do is use that model of meeting students where they're at, and there's no one size fits all. I think we got to change this narrative, right, that the 4-year college experience is for everyone. So we do a lot of assessments and really intakes of really trying to figure out what's the fit for that particular family and that student. But what I'm trying to explain to a lot of parents right now is we are changing the landscape of higher education. You don't just need this specific degree, this specific major to get this specific jobs. Times are changing, right? And being open to that conversation. But it's even educating the parents on the process, because it's different than what it was, right? 10, 15 years ago, and being open to that possibility of change and what that looks like. So it's been a joy. I would say a lot of the clients, one of the families I'm working with right now is in Manhattan, Illinois. After we conclude this show, I'll be reaching out with them, and they just wanted more information. Like, hey, these are the classes that he wants to do. Can you help us find like a fit of college? These are the majors, and just walking through them that whole college process, because it could be a lot. FAFSA's changing, the climate's changing, just so much on the campuses. So it's been so great. And I would say all of the parents that I've met specifically in Chicago here recently have just been so gracious. Like, thank you for taking the time and explaining this to us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just to say the changes, I have to keep up on these things, being a coach and recruiting. And of course, I'm about to get you, this logo right here, girl. I ain't talked to you about that. I launched my own sports marketing company, therise.com, which is we're working with a lot of NIL marketing and working with a lot of brands where we're branding. As we say, we brand the brand, right? We brand the athlete, we brand the brand, so that both of those merge and have a great outcome. So I'll make sure I get that to you. But, the phenomenal thing about what you're talking about is information. Sometimes our people, Black and brown, we get what we call information overload. And sometimes we don't get enough information. Like, I was just talking to a group of parents recently about their athletes no longer need the ACT and the SAT in order to become a college athlete at the Division I and the Division II levels. Now, before they decide not to take them, let's make sure that you understand how that works. And that is, if the athlete's going to get a scholarship, then the school doesn't need the records. Now, if the athlete thinks that they're going to be in a situation where we're like at a Loyola, the Jesuit school, where maybe we got a partial, then we may need that ACT because the additional money's out of pocket. The academics could cut that down, if not make it for free. So I love that you are in these homes and you're educating these parents, because those are the things that the kids' parents say, we didn't get it, or the high school, quasi guidance counselor, they don't even know. So do you work, when you're working with these high school, Jazz, do you also work with those guidance counselors at those schools as well?
Yes. Now, specifically, you have to get the vendor license and things specifically in Chicago public schools, but other partners,
Okay.
yes. And what I'm doing is doing presentations and coaches clinics, and I've been inviting guidance counselors to these. I
wow.
recently did, HBCU Day at Whitney Young, and it was amazing. A lot of guidance counselors was in the room along with the parents. They had no idea about some of the things that I was sharing with them. So I think what I try to do is break it down, right, and make sure that I understand the audience, right, instead of giving these complex terms and words, and then making sure that I give my contact information if we need to further break it down. But I think everyone's been open and very receptive to the information.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once again, it's great to have my girl Jasmine Chievous on tonight. If you guys haven't opened up the front of your brains and learned what's going on the academic and the athletic side of the house, tonight is it. I mean, what I love the conversation tonight, Jazz, more than anything, first of all, just the love I got for you, tell Dad, I got you my first guest on the month of we celebrating women in sports. So this is how much of I thought once I talked to you and I said, I know exactly what I want on tonight. So it was great because I have been talking about the NIL and making money, right? We talk about scholarships and how they go into the NBA and NFL. We talk about Major League Baseball and how the kids play this and that. What we don't talk about enough is how to make sure that little Mary and little Johnny and little Alejandra make sure that they get into school, stay there. And like you said, we don't necessarily have to have that particular degree, but can you finish? Can you accomplish something you start? And oh, by the way, if you need our help, we're right here. So that is absolutely phenomenal. Give us your information so that everyone knows how to reach out, and I'll get Val and to put it in the line later on so these guys know how to catch up with you.
For real, y'all all can go out to www.ontaskachievement.com, or any of my handles are at ontaskachieve. And you'll be able to find me on all social media platforms. And again, I'll be sure to send that out to you all.
Man, that's great. Them Fisk-Guy people be rolling. I don't think Fisk got to be cheering, 2 hands down right now. You've been doing your thing. And the funny part about it, so let me ask you the big question. What's next for Jazz?
What's next for Jazz? Being a phenomenal being a phenomenal mother, first and foremost. I'm going to knock out my PhD, and I want to expand my business full time. So I imagine that we're going to take over a few more countries and continue to serve in the Chicagoland community. I mean, it's huge. We're just getting started, Coach.
Yeah, you are. I'm saying, hey, like I said, you seen the Grinch that Stole Christmas, how he rode on the back of the coattail. That's going to be me back there just ride. I'm like, hey, take me along with you. So especially I want to connect with you when you're doing things of that nature, and you and I could do something with this where you got those athletes that are looking for brands, looking to do something. You talking about different brands you work with, let them know I've got an NIL sports marketing company that works. We just had a young lady from Belmont that I've got signed to my brand, and we just cut a deal with her with Anatomy Sports, which is in the same leisure wear as Lululemon. So we're doing some big things. My young girl, I just told you, the tennis player, Malika, we're working with Adidas and some other things. So I'm not sitting down here doing nothing, Jazz. I'm on the grind, girl.
As always, that's what noobs do, right, Coach?
Yeah, we stay on the grind. That's why we always doing like this, go stand on the grind. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on tonight. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait to get home to talk to you and, man, hug those kids and whatnot, and just sit down and go do dinner and we can catch up. to do everything we got. Of course, as I told you guys, want to reach out to me at The Rise. Go out to the THE Rise, RIZENIL.com, where you can learn more about branding the brand, making sure we brand the athletes with the brand and vice versa. We've had my guest on tonight, none other than my girl, Jasmine Chievous from the Loyola University. And it's been, I can hear the crowd already. Jazz, I appreciate you. And there go my girl Val, the voice just checked in. Val, you got anything to tell my girl Jazz last minute here?
Well, happy Women's History Month, and thank you so very much for all that you're doing in the community, our hometown of Chicago. Chicago, we welcome you, and thank you so very much. And thank you for coming here on the PullUp Podcast. Please come back and join us anytime.
Thank you so much. God bless y'all.
Jazz, you hold on. We'll catch you backstage in a moment, so don't go nowhere.
Okay.
Val, this has been awesome tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. This has been an absolutely awesome show, Val. I mean, again, my guests, knock it out the park, serve up them fastball. We just put it out the park, babe.
And just to hear about just who she's worked with, the coaches that were instrumental in praying. I think that's what stood out to me the most is being a woman of faith. It's important that gets introduced in schools and to help with, kids making those decisions, because she's got a strong presence on Loyola. And I'm telling you, people of color, women, they're going to be looking to her. And it's so good that she's so grounded. She's so grounded. And that's what I was paying attention to, Coach. So I understand the connection. Look at you on how you do things.
Man. You got to keep them feet tight to the ground, Val. They can't be flying around without no kite on.
We cannot do that. We cannot do that, of course.
But it's been great. And hey, again, thank you guys tonight. Season 1, episode 5. Here tonight, special guest, Jasmine Chievous, the Loyola University. My girl right here with me. We'll be back tomorrow night on Interludes Talk on Tuesday. This is your guy, the host, none other than Coach Tony, on the PullUp Podcast Show. So, Val, man, girl, another great show tonight, babe.
Yeah, and I guess it's time to be up and out. We'll see you guys on tomorrow night for entertainment. We have Alvin Malcolm Daniels, a documentary and playwright who will be talking about Martha's Vineyard. We'll hear all about that on tomorrow. We'll check you guys out then. Peace.
Peace.
It's the PullUp Podcast. It's the PullUp Podcast. It's the PullUp Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the PullUp Podcast. It's the PullUp Podcast. It's the PullUp Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the PullUp Podcast. So I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the PullUp Podcast. So it's